In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this interactive logo for your website using Rive. Now, technically, I'm going to be making this crappier version today, but after watching this video, you'll have the skills necessary to make an even better one. And while I'll be using text for my logo, you can really use anything that you want. You don't need to have any experience using Rive. And alongside showing you how to make this, I'm also going to teach you some tips and tricks that I wish I knew when I was starting out using this program. 99.9% of your problems in Rive are going to be from, so before we start, there's a few things that we want to mentally plan out before diving in. You'll need to consider 3 main states for your logo. What do you want it to look like when it's idle, when it's hovered, and when it's clicked? So think about that right now before we start. I'll wait. Okay, let's go. All right, so with Rive open, we're gonna go up here, create a new file, and I'll do this like 500 by 250. We'll create the artboard, and we're gonna do our design and animation in Rive. However, it is important to note that if you are really good at After Effects, for example, you can actually just import your animation in this way. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. Okay, so I have this animation in After Effects, simple loop. Excuse my shapeshifter over here. This is a plugin I made using Rive that works in After Effects. I take care of my little pet. But with my animation here, I'll just use Lottie Files, which is a free extension, and I will render this out. Boom. And then inside of Rive, I can actually just drag and drop this JSON in and pull it onto my artboard and have my animation happening this way. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do everything in Rive. So I'm going to delete this, get it out of my site, flip back over to design mode, make sure everything is deleted. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put down some text for my text animation. So I'll click the text tool up here, click, and I will write N. I'm going to put each letter separately so that I can have more control when I animate them. If you want to change the font, it's here. And if you want to bring in your own font, you just drag it into the assets and then you can use it that way. So I have my N, I will Command D to duplicate it, drag it out, change this to I, and repeat this process for C and K. Now I want all of these to have their origin point in the center, just sort of an OCD preference thing. So I'm going to select them all, and you can use Y to use freeze mode, where you can actually pull the origin point around. But there's an easier way. If I go up here to the alignment and hold Alt, you see all the options change, and I'll just center everything this way. I might have to do each one. Nope, they're all good. And I'll fix the spacing a little bit, make sure everything looks nice together. Okay, so I have all my letters laid out, meaning that my design is done. So I'm going to switch now from design mode to animate, and we're going to see some new options forming here. This is the magic of the state machine. This is the magic of Rive. So thinking about what we need to happen, we need an idle state, we need a hover state, and we need a click state. So for each of those states, we need a new timeline that holds that animation, that interaction. So I'm going to go ahead and name this first timeline idle by double clicking on it. And I'm just going to duplicate this a few more times just so we have the other states. So I'll have idle, I'll have hover, and I'll have click. Let's go into idle first and let's produce that animation. So inside of idle, I'm going to have just a little tiny bounce happening. So I'll select all of my layers. I will add a keyframe on the Y here, and I'll go down like, I don't know, 30 frames. I'm going to copy all these and paste them because we want it to loop. So we want the same thing at the beginning and end. And then in the middle, I'll just, pull them. I can either pull them up with this or with the Y and just give them a little bit of a bounce. And let's just see what that looks like. It's not great. We need to have easing and we need to have staggering. Another thing, I want this to loop, so I need to actually choose that option. So over here, I'll go and I'll change it from one shot, which means that the animation will play and stop, and I'll change this to loop. And so now if we click play, it's going to loop. It's going to play the whole timeline and then loop. And of course, we could change the work area by selecting work area if we want this to be a shorter loop, and we can extend the duration of our timeline here. I don't need to worry about that just yet. So I want these to have a little bit of a nicer ease. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the first half of the keyframes and click over here, and I'll give them this nice like jumping up texture, and I'll select the other half, the back half, and I will do the inverse. And so now it'll feel a little more, you know, energetic and cartoony. And then I'll go ahead and I'll just stagger each one a little bit. This would be a lot better if I had named my layers, but I don't really have time for that right now. It's not, we'll be able to figure it out. Okay, so we have a little bit of an offset. Boom, beautiful. This is a nice little idle animation. So now if we go back to our state machine and we click play or we click spacebar, you can see that we have gone from entry into idle. This is just what's going to happen. This is what the program is being told to do. And that's great. This is exactly what we want to be happening right now. But we want to add a hover animation. So I'll go into hover, and you'll notice we don't have any keyframes or anything laid down on this timeline. Let's dig in. So on hover, I want a little bit of an explosion. So I'll grab all these and I'll make keyframes on both the X and the Y, because I'll probably be animating all of it right now. So maybe we will, you know, again, go out to 30, copy and paste the endings of these. And then in the middle is where I will have the like climax of each thing. So I'll pull the N over here. I'll pull the K over here. I'll put the I up, and I'll put the C down, and we'll get something that's like that, okay? And again, same easing technique. We want a little bit of this bounce, like when you hover, you want it to instantly explode. You don't want an ease into the explosion or anything like that. So again, we will copy this kind of formation, and we will make this loop in case you're just hovering. You know, you want it to keep playing. Okay, we got something like this. Cool. Again, a little stagger could be nice. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. We'll never know until we try it. And we'll go ahead and we will add that. Now it'd be nice to maybe have a little bit of other secondary animations going on. So how about when the N has a little bit of a rotation out? So I'll put a keyframe at the first frame, and as it's out to the edge, I'll like rotate it a little bit, and then we'll bring it back to 0 here. Boom. And we want to make sure that we're matching the easing. So again, I'm going to do the same easing pattern that we have, and you get something like that. That's kind of nice, and we'll just repeat that process across the others. So K, throw down a rotation keyframe at the beginning and at the end, and at the middle, maybe it's like that. You can go as deep as you want here, and I encourage you to add in as much of your own animation as possible. I'm gonna leave it here for now for the sake of brevity. And if you're ever getting lost in your keyframes, basically Rive will like summarize them all onto one line, but you just drop this down and you can see the specific keyframes that you want to be working with, in this case, the rotation. All right, cool. So I'm pretty pleased with this so far. That looks great. Let's add a little bit of interactivity to this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag hover down here into the state machine, but we need to make a connection between idle and hover. So the way we do that is we simply just grab this little dot and we drag it over. Now let's press play and see what happens. Now you notice we're just flying right through here, right into hover. The reason why is because we don't have anything telling the state machine to not just flow straight into here. It's just, that's what's being told to do. So we need to add a condition here. And how do we do that? Well, first thing we want to do is I want to create like a hitbox for the area that we are allowed to hover over. Because if I just do the text as the hover area, then weird things might happen if you're like in between the text. So I always prefer to use a hitbox. You don't have to, but I always prefer to. So I'll just grab a square and I'll just draw a healthy little bounding area. I'll drag this to the bottom, it doesn't matter, but just so I can see more so how it's overlaying. And then I will actually hide this layer, turn it off, because you don't need to see it. It just needs to be there. So with this rectangle selected, I'll rename this hitbox. With that selected, we're going to open up our inputs and listeners. This hitbox will be a listener. It's listening for a specific action. So I'll click plus here, boom, and a couple of things happen. We've created a listener. It has some stuff going on down here and over here. So the first thing we want to do is have this set to pointer enter. That's exactly what we want. It's saying when pointer enters this hitbox area, then this thing down here will happen. Now we don't have this thing down here. So let's make that thing. So we need an input for this. So we'll create an input, a couple of options, a number, a Boolean, and a trigger. We're going to be taking a look at a Boolean, I don't know, which is like a toggle. You can toggle on and off. A trigger is like a one-way thing. You know, you fire the trigger, that's it. Boolean, on and off. That's perfect for hover, where you can be hovering or not hovering. A number is, you know, it's a number. We're not looking at this right now. Boolean, set it. All right, and we'll call this hover. Now with our hitbox, for pointer enter, we want to set Boolean to true, and we're trying to click it. It's not showing up. Let's just delete this here, and we'll create a new one. Input change is what we want to worry about. This is an input. We want to change it. So we will set this to hover, and we'll set hover to true. But now we need to do the inverse, because let's look what happens when we play this. If we play this, you can see it is working, right? If we hover, this is lighting up, but it's not unhovering. And also, this is still not following the condition. We want to add this to be hover true to go this way. So this connection will not happen unless hover is true. All right, let's try it again. Boom, we're idling, we hover, and it plays hover. Again, our issue is it's not unhovering. So let's go ahead and rename this hitbox to hover. And then I will duplicate this by right-clicking, duplicate. And I'm actually gonna call this one unhover. I don't know if that's what they call it in the biz, that's what I call it. And the difference with unhover is that it sets hover to false. And it happens when the pointer exits, okay? So why false and true and not toggle? It just is a little bit cleaner. Toggle has its own purposes. This is not one of them. Okay, true, false. Now we also want to make this connection backwards, right? So we have, when it's true, it goes this way. When it's false, it goes this way. So let's go ahead and add an input, hover, false. Okay, this theoretically, this should be working properly. So we click spacebar. Here's our idle animation. We're gonna keep an eye on the hover down here to see if it's firing. Boom, it's firing. Now let's unhover, and we're back. Now, there's some weird stuff happening here when you kind of do this quickly, right? And so we're gonna dissect this one by one here. 99.9% of your problems in Rive are going to be from keyframes being in one place and not being in the other. What do I mean by that? In our hover animation, we are using keyframes on rotation, and we are using keyframes to go X, left and right. In our idle, we are not using rotation or left and right. We are only using up and down. So what that means is that the timeline knows that when I'm done hovering, I should go back to up and down, but it doesn't know where the rotation and Y position should be. So we actually want to go back to our idle and just grab all of our layers, and we just want to throw some keyframes down in the beginning. So this, if you're coming from After Effects, this is going to be the most confusing thing about Rive, in my opinion, and it's going to be the thing that screws you up the most. Just know 99.9% of your issues in Rive are going to be from keyframes not being where they should be. So I'll just simply select all of my layers and throw some keyframes down on rotation and, you know, the Y, the X and Y position. So now we don't have any change to the animation here, but if we go back to our state machine, now if we do stuff, you know, everything's gonna go back to its right place. Now the remaining issue here is that this is not a nice animation. And we can solve this very simply and elegantly. So on our conditions down here, we have some options on the right side. We're going to be taking a look at duration and exit time. So on the way from idle to hover, I actually probably don't want to do any of this because I want it to interrupt whatever it's doing and just instantly explode out into the hover. But on the reverse way, we want to take a look at these settings. So what I'll do is I will first maybe add a little bit of duration here. 150 to 300 is usually pretty good. And what duration means is the Rive will automatically tween or ease between these two timelines using the simplest path forward. So if I hover and I come out, you'll see it's actually, this is not what I have keyframed. It's actually just pulling it back in to be in the idle state. And this is great. So this pretty much solved that problem where it doesn't feel like it's just kind of like really choppy. Another thing we can do is we can add the exit time. So the exit time is the amount that your timeline must play before exiting. So right now it's set at 0, so there's no kind of rule there. But if we set this to 100%, then it'll say that the entire hover timeline must play before exiting. So let's see what that looks like. So now if we hover and we pull out, you'll see, okay, boom, it's going to do that. But why does it jump like that? And so now we're getting a little bit of like a weird little glitch here. So we'll just go ahead and we'll turn off duration because we don't really need it now that we have this exit time set at 100. And that should probably do the trick. Yep, look at that. We got a nice little thing going on here. Cool, so we'll just repeat this process for click. So let's go ahead and add a click onto here. And so the click, I'm just gonna keep it simple, guys. I don't have that much time. It's a Saturday. Like I'm trying to go live my life a little bit and just be nice making this tutorial, honestly. I don't get anything out of this. Okay, so we're gonna put keyframes down. So let's just maybe change the color of a couple things. You know, we'll just make everything turn red. And, you know, it'll fade back to white, I guess. So we can actually just select all the colors together right here. That's pretty nice. Okay, so here's our thing. It's going to turn red. Maybe like it do a spin. I'm not going to focus on making this look really nice, but let's say they all do a spin to 360. Okay, let's see what this looks like. That's great. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than this. That's what's going to happen. So we'll go back to our state machine and we need to make this click happen, right? Click happens, you guys. So I'm going to drag the click timeline down and we want to get to click from hover. It just makes sense. So we'll draw this connection here. But what is going to tell hover to go to click? We are going to reuse this hitbox and create another listener called click. And we'll set this, instead of pointer enter, it's going to be for click. They thought of everything, you guys. Everything you need is in here. And then finally, we're going to need an input that tells that click happened or when click happens, what to do. So we will create a trigger in this case because clicking is a one-way event in this case, right? It will like refresh your website or go to home or whatever. So we'll click. And when click happens, we're going to add an input change and fire click, and we'll delete this one. I don't know why they give you this one here that doesn't really, like, you can't do anything with, but whatever. Okay, so now when this condition is set to click, boom, let's play. We hover, we click happens, but now you'll notice we are stuck at click because there's nothing telling us to go back to idle. So I'll draw this connection over here from click to idle and we'll say exit time of 100%. So the whole click animation plays, boom, and we're back. So now let's test it out. We hover, we're hovering, we click, and we're back. Okay, but what if I look at that? Something weird is happening. And as I warned you in the beginning, this is because of keyframes not being where they're supposed to be. So let's break it down. Let's break down what is happening. When I click during this hover animation here, there is nothing telling click the position of where these letters need to be. So maybe you like this, right? Maybe this is where you want it to be. Maybe you want the letters to spin around wherever you're clicking. I don't. I want them to snap to the center and spin like that. So I'm going to go back to click, and with all of these letters selected, I'm going to put these position keyframes down here so it knows when this timeline is playing, they must be in this position. Okay, let's play it again. Boom, boom, boom. Working as intended. Our animation is perfect. Let's send it. Let's export the code. Let's put it on our website and let's call it a day. All right. Last thing before I do that, I want to make sure that my artboard is invisible. I don't want this gray background. I can put this background to whatever I want if I want, but I don't. I want it to be invisible, so I'm gonna click the eyeball. And we'll do this by going up to export, and we will generate the share link, generate link. I want the embed link because it's gonna be embedded onto my site. I will copy this, and then I will open up my AI intern of choice. And I'm just going to give it the embed link, and I'm going to say, help me embed this Rive file into my Squarespace website to use as the main header logo. Again, depending on what you're using, it might not be Squarespace. It's generally the same thing. Just send the link to this clanker and copy the code that it gives you, and it has some sort of instruction here. So I'll open up my Squarespace custom code injection, and I will paste this in and click save, and we'll be able to see if it works or not. And boom, it's loading in. There we go. We got to hover, we got to click, and we're all good to go. Okay, so that's it. I told you it was easy. Please share with me anything that you make. You can tag me on Instagram. I'll repost it unless it's really bad and it will make the video look bad. But if it's decently good, I'll share it with everybody. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.